Well, g'day curd nerds. I'm Gavin Webber and welcome to Ask the Cheeseman, where I sit here in the chair of cheesy wisdom and answer all of your home cheese making questions. Now, before I proceed with the questions today, I'd like to give a shout out to some of the inspiration I got for the chair of cheesy wisdom, and that is one of the great YouTube channels, and that is The Great War, and it is hosted by a bloke called Indy Nidell, and he has a great team that backs him up on that channel. Now, if you're interested in World War I history and how it is panning out 100 years in the past, week by week, then pop over to The Great War. It's a fantastic channel if you're into World War I history. Anyway, let's get on with the question, shall we? Lorraine McLaughlin writes from Shepherdsville, Kentucky. I've forgotten a cheese in the back of the fridge. Probably made it 18 months ago. I didn't mark it, so I don't even know what kind it is. As I peeled off the red wax, I saw a rather large patch of black mould. My question is it safe to cut this out and try tasting the cheese? Or is it best to toss it? And are there any cheeses that can be made with heavy cream? I have a quart that needs to be used up somehow. Love the podcasts. Okay, Lorraine. First question is your black mould. Well, it depends on how deep the black mould goes. If it's just surface, then try and scrape it off. And if it's just on the surface, no problems at all. Just wash it off with a little bit of vinegar, white vinegar or apple cider vinegar. Doesn't really matter, and then that'll be fine, and you can eat the cheese. It'll be fine. If it's started to eat into the cheese and the black mould's gone a bit deeper, you can cut that part out and the rest of the cheese will still be okay. If it's got right into the cheese and you can see it has gone fairly deep, then it depends on how infected you think the cheese is. Black mould is not good. It produces a toxin. It is not good to eat, and it can give you food poisoning. So err on the side of caution if it's got right into your cheese. So the next question about how much, so what can you do with lots of cream? You could make a double or triple brie. Lots of recipes in lots of great cheese making cookbooks. You could try a Stilton that uses a fair bit of cream as well. If you make a fairly big batch of that. You could turn it into mascarpone, which uses a lot of cream, and make a very nice tiramisu, which is a delicious dessert. So you could give all of those a try. Thanks for your question, Lorraine. Now the next question's from Kerry via email. She says, "Hi Gavin, I've been asked to make some Camel cheese. It's only got 2% fat. Do you think I am best to mix it with cow's milk? All the literature I have read said it's hard to form a good curd. Any ideas, because it's such a good opportunity and it's very expensive? Thanks, Kerry." Well, Kerry, I've never come across camel's milk. I know it's well used within the Middle East, and it's a very popular milk there. I've done a bit of research for you and have found that it makes a very nice soft cheese. And the most popular soft cheese is called labna, which is basically a yogurt cheese. It's basically a curd, a very soft curd cheese, which they curdle it, acid set, hang it in a butter muslin, and basically it's just a soft cheese. It's very similar to a ricotta that's been hung in a cheesecloth. Now, if you wanted to make something a little bit harder, then yeah, I would add it to say 50-50 camels to cow's milk to get a better structure. If you're going to add some rennet to the milk to get a firmer curd structure, so you could try that. I hope that answers your question, Kerry, and best of luck with your camel's milk. Okay, the next question is from Glenn Morrow, and he left that via YouTube. He asks, how can you measure the pressing pressure and I think he's referring to the press that I use on the channel, which I do sell on my shop. So in answer to your question there, Glenn, it has a compression spring, which is rated at 50 pounds or 22 kilos of pressure when it is fully closed. So basically you have to put 22 kilos of weight on the spring to make it close up fully. So when it's fully closed, I know I'm applying 22 kilos of pressure onto the cheese. Now that doesn't equal to 22 kilos, what do they call it? Kilopascals of pressure, and in pounds, it's not 50 pounds per square inch. It's just 22 kilos of weight applied onto the cheese. So half closed would be 11 kilos or 25 pounds. Quarter closed would be 5.5 kilos or 12.5 pounds. So roughly it's a guesstimate, right? So it's a rough estimation. You can get your own compression spring. You can test it by put it on top of a scale and then applying weight to it to see how much weight then closes the spring, and then you'll get a good idea on what that is rated at. But really, when it comes down to it, it's the end result that matters. It doesn't matter how you press your cheese. It is the end result. I had an observation the other day from another YouTuber. Another person left a comment on the channel that said, because I'm using a compression spring, do I have to retighten it all the time? Well, the answer to that is yes, of course, because as the cheese gets pressed, the spring expands again. So when over that initial, say, first 30 minutes, I go back at, say, the 15-minute mark, and then I retighten the spring again. Same as if it's pressed for an hour lightly, I then go back and retighten the spring again. Over that initial, then probably 12 hours, then I'll retighten the spring at, say, every 2 or 3 hours, and then when I go to bed, I just leave it. Especially for the hard cheeses when they're tightened all the way down to 50 pounds to 22 kilos. Just before I go to bed, I just make sure that they're tightened all the way down. So, work with what you've got. If you make your own press, then you'll have to figure out how to calculate the weights and all that sort of stuff. There are lots of presses out there on the market for sale. Like I said, we have one in our shop. There are lots of good ones out there, and there are lots of fantastic homemade ones. A lot of home cheese makers make themselves. I actually have a post on littlegreencheese.com. Just go there and there's a search bar and look for homemade cheese presses, and there are, I think I showcased about 4 or 5 from other cheese makers who made them themselves. They're pretty good. I was really impressed, and there's photos and everything, so check that out. I'll put a link in the description below. So the patron of the week is Peter Wilson. Thanks for your support, Peter. If you'd like to support the channel so I can make new and interesting cheeses and cheese-related content like this video, then please support me via Patreon. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. If you like the channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to be reminded when I release a cheese video every week. Thanks for watching, Curd Nerds, and I will see you next week.